Hey everyone, back here on a nice blustery day, talking about rock climbing stuff, even though there's absolutely no one here and it's January and no one wants to rock climb. But I've been seeing this sort of, not exactly a fad, this trend moving out in all the anchor world, and it kind of got more popularized by Chris McNamara's book on how to big wall climb. However, this sort of does have a name. It's tying your cord, instead of in a big loop for anchors, just tying 2 knots in the end, usually figure eights, but overhands would be comparable. And then just having a straight line of cord. Yeah, this sort of has pros and cons, just like any other anchor, and ultimately it kind of doesn't matter what you do as long as you keep it to serene standards. But I did want to talk about this one specifically. Rain. But I did want to talk about this one specifically because of some of the drawbacks it has, and just pros and cons in general. So, in this situation, I'm going to use a standard 3-piece anchor. I have my 3 pieces here off camera. Clip into one. Ideally, you want to clip the furthest one, or the furthest one, and then the closest one, or stick to the outside of your anchor, and then take a loop and clip it into the middle. You drag it down, and you find your direction to pull, and then tie a knot of some sort. There you go. I did a figure 8 to eat up a little bit more material. What you can see here is I have my redundant master point, but I don't have a shelf on my anchor. And maybe if you're just like multi-pitch climbing and you want to build an anchor real fast, then yeah, this would be just fine. You can operate fully on the master point. That's no big deal, especially if it's nice and big like this. But in a more complex situation where you want different elements of your anchor for different things, not having a shelf is a really big drawback. And so that's probably like the biggest drawback to this system I can find. Another thing is, since it's a fixed length, I kind of am stuck with having my master point in the same spot. It is affected by other things like how far away your cams are and how close they can be. If they're pretty close, like in this sense, you see how my master point's all the way out here, which is fine if I have a big ledge. Like that line right there is my ledge to where the climb was, and I got up here, big ledge, really easy to, it doesn't matter how big your anchor is. But the problem is, if this is a hanging belay, I don't really have a lot of room to pull in rope for my climber. It's kind of like the anchor is taking up all the space. Now you can pull some tricks like going up the rope and then tying virtually a BHK. Get this just right, there we go. And you can see how that eats up a lot of material. But I still don't have a shelf. My master point's pretty small, and now I got to deal with this extra stuff hanging on the side. Which in this case I would probably just clip it off like that. So that way the carabiner will stop this from going back through and untying the master point completely. And so this does elevate my master point a bit higher, but it's just not as useful. I just feel like this anchor is a little overhyped, and that's why I'm making this video about it. Here, let me show you. Now there is the other option of clipping both knots into the same point, which Chris also brings up. And I'm not attacking Chris McNamara on this or anything. I think he's a great guy. I think he has really good advice. But I'm just saying, and you know, maybe this anchor is really nice in big wall settings, but I just don't think it translates to everyday climbing. If I do clip each point into one piece, then I have the same exact sort of cord anchor right here with my master point and a shelf. And so if you're a fan of having the versatility of having 2 knots and being able to sort of stretch out your anchor as much as you want, and then you just get in the habit of clipping both knots into one point, then yeah, this anchor will work out just great. But I just think I think people get a little carried away with how amazing it is. Some people really swear by this anchor. Another name for this is also the Webalette, because people used to make it out of webbing. It doesn't matter if it's made out of cord or webbing. You can do whatever you want. I think cord's a bit more packable and a bit lighter, perhaps, depending on the cord. So I just use my cord. I don't have a big loop of webbing just ready to go for this sort of thing. So here's another angle of me building the same first anchor I was talking about. You clip one loop into one, then the middle into the middle, and then that's your final loop right there. And then you can drag your two lines down and equalize them before bringing them together in a master point knot, either an overhand figure eight or a multi-figure eight knot. So here's the second example I was talking about, where you fold the entire master point and then you get 6 strands to tie into an overhand knot or a BHK, which then eats up quite a bit of material, but you do have those 2 strands right there that are a problem, so you have to isolate those and clip them off so that way it doesn't come undone. Here's my final example where I clipped both of the knots into one piece and then took one strand and clipped it in the middle piece, and then one strand into the piece on the end, dragged it all down, and then tied an overhand knot to pretty much make the same anchor that everyone uses with the 2 ends joined together. Alright, so there you guys have it. That's my thoughts and setup for the Equalette. Really the pros are it's fast. If you know the route and you know the anchors, you can take less cord with you and have smaller anchors. If your pieces are really spread far apart, it could help you out with that. But overall, I don't think it's really that much of a revolutionary item. There's a reason why it's kind of died down, but it still has maybe a few uses, and ultimately it's kind of just another option for an anchor. Feel free to play around with your own time. Folks who've used it more than me, you can add your comments on what you like about it. A number of companies actually make a specific Equalette or Webalette type contraption. I know Metolius has one, which probably is about 9 feet of webbing or so, which kind of is about the length you want for this sort of setup, 8 to 9 feet, nothing too big. But if you own that and you have your thoughts and opinions, then leave a comment about it. I'd love to read it. But I just don't think it has too big of a use in climbing, and I just wanted to make a video about it, talking about the different options and different things you could do with it. But it's just not as versatile as slings or using your cord in general.